Well, let's get on with the report. We'll take that report and then we'll come back and continue from there.
Finally, federal lawmakers in the Senate held the much-anticipated vote on constitutional amendment.
Vote as your conscience directs you.
The vote held for almost 5 hours, with the lawmakers doing a clause-by-clause review of the areas for amendment. As expected, the lawmakers voted against the recommendation of a 6-year single tenure for the president, vice president, and state governors.
86 senators voted no, 1 senator abstained, and therefore this clause has not passed.
What was, however, shocking to Nigerians who have been monitoring the process was the rejection of autonomy for local government. 59 lawmakers voted for local government autonomy, while 38 voted against, bearing in mind that 73 votes are needed for any clause to be passed. Curiously, they voted against the removal of prisons from the exclusive list. The senators also endorsed life pension for the president and deputy president of the Senate, as well as the speaker and deputy speaker of the House of Representatives. The recommendation that a bill automatically becomes law if the president fails to assent to it after 30 days of transmission was also approved. In addition, they adopted Clause 9 of a draft bill which empowers the National Assembly to make an entirely new constitution for the country. They also adopted Section 3A of a draft which rejects the president's assent on the amended constitution before taking effect. However, Clause 4 of the bill caused controversy on the floor of the Senate. The committee recommended alteration of Section 29 of the Constitution that deals with the manner of renunciation of citizenship. The Constitution states that full age means 18 years and above, and the committee proposed a removal of Part B of the clause, which states that any woman that is married shall be deemed to be of full age. But a lawmaker opposed this.
By Islamic law, any woman that is married, she's of age. So if you now say she's not of age, then it means that you are going against Islamic law.
Going forward, a conference committee will be set up to streamline the positions of both houses of the National Assembly, and the report from the conference committee would then be sent to the state houses of assembly. From the National Assembly, Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
All right, then we'll continue from there. Boye Lemiyu joins us today. He's a legal practitioner. Morning, and thank you for coming on.
Pleasure is always mine.
Well, as a practitioner,
thank you.
When you see them amending the ground norm upon which you practice, and you've seen that, what strikes you?
Well, I should offer a few comments, really, with regard to the amendments that the Senate has proposed after a vote. The first thing that strikes me, really, is the arrogation of the powers to the National Assembly to be the authority to formulate a new constitution for Nigeria. You know, yeah, you can argue to some degree that the National Assembly perhaps is a representation of the sovereign will of the people. But when you are going to fashion something as fundamental as a new constitution, I think that the people themselves ought to be directly involved.
How?
How? Through the process of a plebiscite or perhaps a referendum, you know, something that will, something they're consciously doing, you know, for want of a better expression. Because there the National Assembly is an indirect approach. And you and I know, for example, that few people in relation to the generality of the population have actually made an input into the amendment that is being passed presently. Most people are busy going about their day-to-day activities. And but if you have, for example, a referendum, it's like drawing attention of the population to the need for them to make an input. And I think that will obviously be a fairer representation of their position rather than the indirect way that we're going about it.
Does it suggest in any way that having gone about it the way they are,
Yes.
that they know or are thinking that it is not exactly in their place to do that?
Well, unfortunately, I think that the political actors in the country today are if I may use the expression again, arrogating to themselves powers that sometimes they do not possess. And they need to be reminded that ultimately sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria. It's a privilege to have been elected into office and into the National Assembly. And, we must, and they must constantly bear in mind that, there are limitations to their powers because ultimately sovereignty belongs to the people of the country.
If you look at the portions of the Constitution that I was going to ask you first of all, is it an amendment we need? I'll come back to my question. Is it an amendment we need or proper implementation of what we have?
Frankly speaking, people have offered various kinds of comments. The Constitution tells a lie against itself when it says we the people of Nigeria. It's a military decree that has been handed over. But assuming that the 1999 Constitution is if you like, more or less like the 1979 Constitution. And you know, of course, that the process by which the 1979 Constitution evolved was through the Constituent Assembly. You might say that it's fair to conclude that it has the input of the generality of the people. But I think it's important to emphasize that the operation of the Constitution itself can be better done than is presently being done. And I don't think the present actors are particularly mindful of public interest. And their vision, it seems to me, is not so clear about where they want to take the country to.
All right, let's look at the areas that they voted for. One had to do with the age of maturity in terms of marriage and all of that. What do you think? Let's begin from there.
I think 18 is far too. You might take 18, but because after all,
18.
18.
That's what the Constitution says now.
Well, voting. You see?
No.
Well, that's the amendment, isn't it?
Voting,
No,
not marriage.
For area of
voting.
marriage, they're saying 18 is too much.
Yes.
They voted.
Well, you see, generally speaking, one will say that when it comes to what is the appropriate age for marriage, it's a matter really that it's sensitive because some are fairly matured at 18 and others are totally matured at 18. I think that 18 is far too young, really. If you see, emotionally, and one has to be realistic when you're considering these things. At 18, yes, you can vote at 18, but the responsibilities of a wife, I think, is far too much for an 18-year-old to bear. Especially when it comes to emotions, when it comes to responsibilities, when it comes to restraint, when it comes to offering comfort to the family and the rest of it. 18 is, in my mind, far too young. And if you look at it critically, few fathers will be willing to give their 18-year-old out, to marriage.
Oh. Well, let's speak a little further on this, and you're a practitioner, so tell us, if you will, because we understand the penal code, the criminal code,
yes,
recognizing the dynamics of religion, staying together, and then you also have the Sharia court, you have the courts also in the southern part of the country. They don't exactly have the same kind of principles in terms of what they require. What may be criminal here, it's not criminal with the penal code. And then with this debate, perhaps it's also another thing, but now that the senators are all together, coming from all parts of the country, this part is a controversial part because, I mean, you heard Senator Yerima, former governor of Zamfara, saying, according to Islamic law, if you're married, you're deemed to have been of age.
Well,
even if you're below 18.
Yeah, one can make that assumption that if you're, I'm not conversant with Islamic law, but I am sure that it is premised on reason and common sense. And